I'd been warned about the old farm on the edge of town. People still whispered about it in the local diner, spinning tales of strange happenings and eerie noises that echoed across the fields at night. But I wasn't the type to believe in ghost stories. I grew up in the city, where the only thing that scared me was the thought of missing an important work email. Moving out to the country was supposed to be a fresh start, a way to unplug from the grind and find some peace. So when the old MacReady farm came up for sale on Craigslist for a fraction of what it was worth, I didn't hesitate. The house was run down, the barn nearly collapsing, but I had a vision. I'd fix it up, maybe start a small organic farm, and live the kind of life that people in the city only dream about. It would be hard work, but I wasn't afraid of that. The first few days were exhausting but rewarding. I mowed the overgrown fields, patched up the roof, and started clearing out the debris in the barn. The place felt like it was coming back to life, and I felt a sense of pride I hadn't felt in years. Then one night, everything changed. I was working late in the barn, trying to finish repairing an old stall. The sun had set hours ago, and the only light came from my phone, which I had set on a beam above me, its flashlight casting long, eerie shadows across the space. I was so focused on my work that I didn't notice the noise at first. A soft, scratching sound, like something moving in the straw behind me. I figured it was just a raccoon or maybe one of the stray cats I'd seen around the property. I didn't think much of it. But then the sound grew louder. Closer. I paused, the hammer in my hand freezing mid-swing. The barn was silent except for my own breathing, which was suddenly too loud in my ears. The scratching had stopped. "Hello?" I called out, my voice echoing off the wooden walls. "Is someone there?" No answer. I shook my head, laughing nervously at myself for being jumpy. I turned back to the stall, but as I did, I heard it again. This time, it was followed by a low, guttural moan. A chill ran down my spine, and my heart began to race. "Who's there?" I demanded, my voice a little less steady. Silence. I grabbed my phone and shone its light into the dark corners of the barn. The beam barely penetrated the darkness, but I could make out the shapes of old tools hanging on the walls, the piles of hay stacked in the corners. And then, I saw it. At first, I thought it was just a shadow, but as I focused, I realized there was someone, standing in the far corner of the barn. It was a figure, hunched over, its back to me. It was dressed in old, tattered clothes, and its skin was pale, almost glowing in the faint light. "Hey!" I shouted, trying to sound more confident than I felt. "What are you doing here? This is private property." The figure didn't move. It just stood there, completely still. Fear twisted in my gut, but I forced myself to take a step closer. "I'm calling the police," I warned, though my hand was shaking so badly I wasn't sure I could even dial 911. Still, the figure didn't move. I was close enough now to see that its clothes were caked with dirt, the fabric shredded and hanging in strips. Its hair was long and matted, covering its face. "Hey!" I shouted again, my voice cracking. And then it turned. Its face, if you could call it that, was something out of a nightmare. The skin was stretched tight over its skull, the eyes sunken deep into their sockets, glowing with a sickly, yellow light. Its mouth was twisted into a horrible grin, revealing teeth that were sharp and jagged, far too many for any human. I stumbled back, my mind scrambling to make sense of what I was seeing. This wasn't possible. This wasn't real. But it was. It was real, and it was coming toward me. The thing let out a sound, a howl, a scream, something that made my blood run cold. I turned and ran, my feet slipping on the loose straw as I bolted for the door. Behind me, I could hear it following, its footsteps heavy and uneven, like it was dragging something behind it. I burst out of the barn and into the night, the cold air hitting me like a slap in the face. I didn't stop running until I reached the house, slamming the door behind me and locking it tight. But I knew it wasn't enough. Whatever that thing was, it wasn't going to stop. I could feel it, out there in the darkness, watching, waiting. And then, I heard it. A soft, scratching sound, coming from the other side of the door. The same sound I'd heard in the barn, now just inches away. It knew where I was. And it wasn't going to let me go.